Coming up next on Another View, family dynamics during the holidays. There are 4 days left until Christmas and time with extended family. Are you ready to handle the inevitable squabble between siblings? Have you decided which family, yours or your spouse's, to visit first? And what about the in-laws? Will you live up to their expectations? Our favorite relationship expert, Alvean Lyons, is here and ready to help you navigate the holidays with your nerves and your sanity intact. The Another View Holiday Survival Boot Camp. It's coming up next, right after this news from NPR.
Discussing the issues and celebrating the successes of the African American community. This is Another View.
And good afternoon, everyone. Happy holidays. I'm Barbara Hamley. Welcome to Another View. Now, according to holiday television commercials, this is the season of perfect. Family members arriving to perfectly decorated homes, tables laden with food, hugs and kisses all around as beautiful carols play in the background. Now, does that sound like your house? Well, if you're like most of us, you're still running around getting ready, and in the back of your mind, you may be promising yourself that you just won't allow your sibling to bait you into an argument, or that you will just smile as Uncle Joe tells the same old story for the 100th time. We welcome back to the program relationship expert and CEO of Trace Consulting, Alvean Lyons, with some holiday survival tips. Hi, Alvean. How are you?
Hey, Barbara.
So I heard you chuckling at my examples, but you know that's true. That's what happens, isn't it?
We all live it, including the experts.
Absolutely. Well, before we get into that, I do want to ask you about something a little bit on the very serious tip.
Absolutely.
And that is, it was a week ago today that the massacre occurred in Newtown, Connecticut. And I know that a lot of parents, a lot of adults have had issues coming to grip with what happened and how to explain it, especially to the younger children. Now that the funerals are happening and things are starting to wind down, eventually the media is going to go away and it's going to change to another topic. But if your child still has questions, can you give us some advice on how to allow them to talk about it and what you should say?
Well, definitely. The fact is that we don't always know how our children are processing things. We don't know how long those things are going to linger. There's no way except through our plug-in with our children, our monitoring differences in behaviors and actions. Are we seeing a lot of weeping? Are we seeing some nervousness when it's time to get in the car to go someplace? Are we finding that they want to sleep in the bed more often depending upon the age of your children? Are we finding that they're a little bit more nervous? The separation anxiety is revisiting again, the kind of thing that you haven't seen since they were 2-3 years old. Those things are all indicators to us. Whenever you're seeing a difference in the way that your child normally, quote unquote, behaves to something slightly different, it certainly suggests that they're still wrestling with something that they haven't quite figured out all the parts to. When we're talking about something like death, one of the analogies I often use is that we have to discuss it developmentally appropriate, almost in the same way we would talk about the creation of life. They are very similar in that way. Obviously, very different emotions connected to them, but in how we communicate those things to our kids, it's not really that different. The fact is that we typically would not walk up to our 5-year-old child and sit down and say, let's talk about the birds and the bees. We would not normally do something like that. We would wait for them to come to us and say something. Typically, a very good guideline when your kids are still wrestling with something is the conversations that they stimulate, the sentiments you hear them say. Sometimes they've processed things and have put them in a box that they feel works for them. And it's okay to leave that there as long as you're not hearing and seeing things that suggest there may be some faulty stuff going on in that box. But when you start to see those different things, that's when we need to have a conversation about it. Your conversation needs to line up with your value system. Don't try to be something different in this than what your kids know you to be in all other things. So if you're typically pretty direct, be that, because they need the consistency. They need to know that this is not outside of, yes, while it's not normal, obviously something that heinous and tragic is not normal, but that you are still their normal. They're looking for security. They're looking for guidance. They're looking for a sense of safety. All of those things come from us as parents.
And is it okay then to also say to them when they say, why did this happen? That you don't know.
Yes.
Because we don't know.
Absolutely. And kids can appreciate that. They can appreciate our honesty. What they don't like is when we are not being forthright with them because they can sense that unease. They're very intuitive creatures. So when you don't know, you can say, I wish I could give you an answer to that. Mommy or daddy wishes that we did have some way to explain something that caught us all off guard, but we don't. But what we do know for sure is that we are doing everything we can to keep you safe. We will do everything we can to ensure that you never have to have an experience like that. We'll do everything we can to make sure that you know that mommy and daddy are constantly thinking about your well-being and would never put you in a situation purposely that your safety would be in question. They need reassurance right about now. And depending upon their age, the level of details that you might get into with them will differ. So think in terms of developmentally appropriate ways of communicating.
Okay. All right. Let's get to the family and the holidays. And I want to put out the phone numbers very early on. So call us with your questions about navigating family dynamics during the holidays. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Okay. The first question is, why do we put so much pressure on ourselves to make it the Hallmark moment?
Oh, God.
I mean, does it have to be a Hallmark moment?
It doesn't. Family is tragically imperfect, and that's okay. And we have to be okay with that. You know, I'm always amazed, and even for myself, because I have to evaluate my own things, because I have a large family also, and we are a very traditional family on top of that. So there's a particular place we normally have Christmas, and there's a particular way in which things are done in there. So we're a very traditional family, and when you've changed so much, we are not the families of old where we're all within very small distances one to another.
People travel.
So people travel. People have met partners and spouses that have families in other states. So how do you divide up the day or the holiday? And feelings are all involved in all of that. And how do I make sure that, and it's the thing, it's part of our culture for some reason where we feel like holidays, any kind of holiday, be it Valentine's Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, that there's this measure of how much we love and are committed based on what happens on that day. And
as opposed to what we've done all year long.
So never mind the other 360 whatever. But suddenly this day is the interview for whether or not I have been a great child, sibling, partner, whatever. And it's that unrealistic amount of pressure that we put on ourselves that creates that feeling and the nervousness we all kind of get about how this thing is going to go. So we've got to cut that out.
So, okay, the tradition is that you always go to your family for Christmas. And suppose this year you decide that you want to stay home and have your own tradition.
And
how do you navigate that?
Touchy thing.
Yeah, buddy.
Yes, it is. It's a very touchy thing. Well, something interesting, because we had that very experience going on. So I've learned a lot in it because I'm in it, literally. So very different than the research.
Okay.
Have you ever noticed that?
Yes.
So one of the things, I was actually reading a fantastic book by Stephen Covey called The Third Alternative. And what the book talks about is the fact that a lot of times we look to compromise from a perspective of I'm going to give up something that's important to me, you're going to give up something that's important to you, so that we can kind of meet in the middle. But what the third alternative suggests is that let's create something that neither of us had really even considered before. So this year is actually the first year that, because some of my siblings would not have come home in order to spend time with their own families, which many of us are experiencing out there, it would have meant that we would not see them for a whole nother another calendar year. So what we decided to do is go ahead and spend time with those respective families. Those of us who can get together on Christmas Day itself will get together, but that we will all meet after Christmas so that we don't actually go an entire holiday season without seeing each other. And it's the first time we've ever tried that. So the idea being that it doesn't have to be either or, but it can in fact be a conjunction as in both.
Okay, but how did you guys come to that conclusion? Was there a family conference? Was it everybody just kind of calling each other on the phone?
That would be yours truly.
Somebody has to be the
Somebody
producer.
has to. And that's the fact. The reality is that somebody in the family has to be willing to say, hey, we can do this another way. But that other way has to have a payoff for all parties involved. Mm-hmm. The reality is, at the end of the day, all of us want to feel like our feelings were considered, our thoughts, our needs were considered, and particularly as you're talking about traditional families where something has been done a particular way for a long period of time, acknowledging and respecting those existing traditions are important. Nobody wants to feel like what they've spent their whole life believing in is just being tossed for something brand new. Mm-hmm. So the sense that instead of it being about here or there, it becomes about us getting together, period. That it's not such an absolute thing, but it's a concept that's a bit more fluid to include and make room for who we have become.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. If you're having trouble navigating through your family dynamics this holiday season, give us a call and let's see if we can get Alvean to give you some thoughtful ways to handle some sticky situations. So you have a brother or sister, and you love them, but you just don't get along. And you know that every time the two of you are in a room together, there's going to be fireworks of some sort or another. How do you prevent that?
Well, the truth is that there are certain things, there are decisions that we have to make personally. We are never going to be able to control what another person does, but we are in full control of how we respond to what another person does. So sometimes it means that, like it or not, we may decide that last year I took that on. Last year I responded to that, and I was ticked off for 2 weeks afterwards.
Ruined my whole day.
Ruined my whole holiday. So is it really worth it? And sometimes we have to count the cost. What is it that this thing, engaging in this, telling you what I feel about this for the 972nd time, what is the cost of that at the end of the day? What is your goal? What do you want your equal sign to be when the holiday is done? And if you want your equal sign to be that we had the best time we could have under whatever the circumstances were, then sometimes that means I have to change how I respond to some of the things that I know are inevitably going to come up. So you get to own that piece. You get to have full control over that. And if that means sometimes that I'm going to go in for dinner, but we always get into it after dinner, then excuse yourself after dinner. Find something to do.
Find something else to do.
Find something else to do. Go play with all the kids. They're not fighting. It's just, there are things
That's a great idea.
There are ways to be able to do it that we don't think about, that are outside of the way we normally handle things. You can still be plugged in and disengage simultaneously. And what I mean by that is, if I decide that we're not going to have this conversation around the dining room table that always ends in somebody upset, then instead I get up and I'm going to help with the dishes. I don't normally like dishes, but I understand that the dishes are going to have less of a price than me standing here and talking to you. But I am doing something that is helpful and contributing to the family as a whole. So I'm finding new ways. And I'm still
staying positive.
Exactly. Because I'm not going to play in that sandbox with you, because you're going to kick sand in my hair and I'm going to want to fight you.
Okay, we have another question. If you're the host, so everybody's coming to your home, should you make the conscious effort to keep relatives apart that you know don't get along?
Well, the problem with that is that if you love these people equally, so to speak, it's very hard to avoid that. What can be helpful if you're the host typically is that you have the kind of relationship with each of those entities to have preparatory conversations prior to the getting together. That this year we're going to be proactive instead of reactive. I won't be putting out the fire, but instead I'm going to talk about what it is that we can do to avoid the fire to begin with. So if that means, Uncle Buck, I am not going to bring the moonshine for you. We're not going to do that.
We're not going there this year,
We're not
Uncle
doing
Buck.
that this year.
Then that's the way. What if the relative though says, fights back. You're changing the way that we normally do things. It's okay to say, yeah, we are.
We are. If we need to. And there's a difference between what we need to do versus what we want to do. If the need to is about, at the end of the day, we all want to walk away from this holiday having enjoyed one another and wanting to come back together, and this thing is interrupting that equal sign, then that's something we need to do. But if we're all fine after this anyway, then you really have to ask yourself, how much does it really matter if they do the fireworks? Because we all still want to come back anyway. It's like reality television. We enjoy the train wreck.
We enjoy the train wreck.
So it's a matter of what the equal sign is. If somebody's really emotionally bruised, doesn't want to talk to the family for weeks afterwards, then there's something we need to do about that because it's costing people something. But if they're just going to get hot and fiery just for the night and then it just dissipates, is it really that big a deal?
Absolutely. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Betsy joins us from Hampton. Hi, Betsy. You're on the air.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I just wanted to say that we're a blended family. Between us, we have 6 children, so you can imagine the bedlam there.
Wow.
They're all up and grown and paired up. The ones with children have started their own Christmas traditions, and they have chosen to stay home with their families instead of going out. We have a Christmas open house with, breakfast, and if you make it, you make it. If you don't, you don't. But once a year, in the summer, I've set aside a weekend. I said, I want to see everybody there on that weekend. So we get all the kids and all the grandkids together. And that seems to work. Through the holidays, we see them. Eventually, we see everybody, but seldom all at once. And that's what works for us.
So you kind of take it away from the Christmas or the holiday season and make it at another time of the year so that there's not that pressure to be everywhere.
Right, because our children each have 2 families, and then their significant others or spouses either have their own families or even some of them have 2 families.
Great.
Absolutely.
So there's too many families, and there's no pressure on from our little segment.
That's fantastic.
And that is just brilliant, Betsy. I mean, it's a very good idea. We get too caught up on particular days as opposed to the message that we want created. And if the message is that we love each other and we're going to take the time to invest in seeing one another, then does it really have to be on just that day? So that's very smart.
Thank you, Betsy, and happy holidays to you.
Thank you.
All righty, you take care now. The husband and wife, all right, how do you decide whose family to go see?
Well, really, something that tends to end up happening is it's the price tag. Whose family is it going to cost us more if we don't go see? And that tends to be how people make decisions. It's not really based on what it is that you need and what it is that I need, as much as it is what is it going to cost us if we do what you need versus we do what I need. And if you have a family that is like Betsy's family, that is willing to, hey, come in whenever you come in, and then we'll see you guys for sure on this date that nobody else is laying claim to, there's a much smaller price tag on not being there that morning with that family or not being there that day with that family. If you have a very traditional family, that if you're not there, you are basically sending us all an email to say that you don't care anymore, then you might want to show up for that one first. Sometimes it's a prioritizing. Unfortunately, it's kind of like a triage. What is going to stem the greatest bleeding first? And while it's an unfair level of pressure, it's one that we all end up having to navigate.
Oh, my goodness. That is very true. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Hi, Gary. You're on the air.
How you doing? I do it the odd way for everybody. I deal in video communications equipment and things like that. So my partner or he or I are never in country for the holidays, so our families never see us. So either one of us is usually deployed, militarily or otherwise. So since I own a lot of video equipment and things like that, for families who don't already have like Skype, things like that, I put in whole satellite communication systems for them. So we all set the laptops up or the computers around the tree so everybody can watch everybody open gifts, and then we take them to the tables and sit them at the table.
Isn't that cutting edge?
Technically, everybody's there.
Man, talk about being in the 21st century. I never even thought about that, but you're absolutely right. That is very definitely a way to do it.
$50,000 one year to set them all up with high-definition cameras, TVs, and everything else, and now we can communicate anytime we want.
That is fantastic. We don't all have the means to do something or the skill to be as brilliant as Gary has managed to be. And I'd like to climb into one of your backpacks sometime, Gary, and be in another country for the holidays sometimes too. But I'm so happy for you that you found a way to avoid all of that altogether and utilize the benefit of technology.
Absolutely. Gary, happy
families get together all at one time.
Wow, that's fantastic.
That's impressive.
Happy holidays to you, Gary. Thanks for calling.
And to your partner, Gary.
Absolutely. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. You're getting ready for the holidays. Do you have some family dynamics that you may be a little concerned about? Give us a call, 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. We have another question. Should you correct family members' children who are out of control if their parents don't? And does it make a difference if it's happening at your house or in a public venue?
Well, it does. When you're in your own space, you have the right to determine what is acceptable within your own space. One of the most effective ways to do that, and I'm a firm believer in setting boundaries in your own home, as my house is the house where all of the teenagers hang out. So what you're used to doing someplace else, I'm not responsible for. But let's be clear about what's going to be okay here. So the same thing is true where family is concerned. It is you giving the acknowledgement that I understand, Sean, that at home or someplace else that it's okay for you to jump across the couch. And that's okay there. But in our house, here are what the rules are. We can't do that. And if you do it again, here's what's going to happen. So while
but Sean's mother is giving you the evil eye.
And
Absolutely.
she can. And it's okay. She can give you the evil eye. And when she says something to you about it, you just kindly, hey, let's call her Sharon. Hey, Sharon, let's meet in the kitchen. And you go into the kitchen and you say, listen, Sharon, here's what the rule is in my house. If you don't want me to say anything to Sean about it, then I'm going to need you to say something to Sean about it. I will not overstep my bounds if you take care of it. I promise you that, because by all means, you're his mom. But if you're not going to say something, I can't let Sean do those things here and start something that is not true or acceptable in my space. So just like being bilingual, Sean can speak Spanish at your house, but over here we speak Japanese.
Gotcha. So it really is okay for you to set the boundaries within your space. Okay, so now you're in a public restaurant and you've got the big long table and everybody's there and the kids are just out of control. Is it okay for you to say something?
Well, that one you have to play a little by ear.
Especially if Sharon's not saying anything.
Right, that one you have to play a little bit by ear. I'm one of those people who will. I'm going to say something, and I'm going to say it nicely, and I'm going to say it with that face that says that I'm not joking. So there's
the mama face.
Yes, Scott, you will see that face.
Yes.
You need to sit down if you tip your chair one more time. And then I won't even finish the sentence. Just if you tip that chair one more time. Let you imagine what the end.
But it is so important, though, if in fact he does tip that chair one more time, to follow through.
Oh, absolutely, because you have to mean it. You have to mean it.
Right.
And even if your follow through simply means that go sit with your mom. That may be it may be something just as simple as that you're not sitting over here with the rest of the kids because it's setting a bad example for the other kids. Somebody could get hurt. It's the equal sign sometimes that you have to give to children. They don't recognize always that the way that I'm behaving may be creating this impression of me, or the way that I'm behaving is influencing the other siblings in different kinds of way, or the other nieces and nephews and the ways that we would not want that to be the case. Sometimes you have to take that out of the abstract and make it very real for them. But if they're not going to respond to you, then you need to send them to their parent. Go tell your mom what I said. And yet again, it creates the dialogue that is necessary, because if you can't do anything because you're not in a position to discipline someone else's child, you are sending them to the parent, who ultimately may either discipline them or have issue with what you said, which creates the conversation back between two adults to figure out how we're going to resolve this as two adults. We are in public, and we do not want to be that family that everybody else is staring at for not good reasons.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. What are the family dynamics in your home? How are you handling them? Give us a call and let us know. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. 240. So you have a blended family, and there may be jealousy between the siblings.
Absolutely.
And it manifests itself in the opening of presents, say, for example. Someone feels that they were slighted, or someone, Joey got the better gift than Martha did, or whatever. How do you manage that situation?
Well, I really believe that what makes the biggest difference in terms of our experiences on the holidays is what we do leading up to the holidays. The lovely thing about the fact that we're doing the show today is that it still gives us time before we actually get to the present component a couple of days from now. So there's some conversations that we may not have had that this would be a great opportunity for us to have some of those conversations. For instance, we are in an economy that has affected us in all kinds of different ways, which may mean that I don't necessarily have the money to do some of the things that I would like to do for you, but such and such's aunt had enough money to do that, or daddy's sibling could do that, and he did it for this child but didn't do it for the next child. All of those money dynamics that could potentially influence what the experience is going to be for the children, you have an opportunity to talk about those things in advance. And what I mean is that you may be able to sit down and say, hey, here's what Christmas is going to mean in our house. Here's what the holidays are going to mean in our house. So it's not going to be about the presents, but let's take the focus off of that and put it on something else. When somebody gets something that we thought we should have had, that is an opportunity for us to look at our character. Are we happy for someone else, or are we only happy when we're getting something out of it? We've got to bring the character component back into the Christmas and holiday seasons. When we allow it to be about such material things, that's when the competition becomes a major factor. That's when all of those ugly things that raise their head are so much more prominent, because we're not talking about what really matters. We're measuring love and affection, acceptance and approval based on either what you did or didn't do for me, be it behaviorally or materially.
But suppose you find yourself, if you either had the conversation or you didn't have the chance to have that conversation, and the child acts out or withdraws or starts crying or whatever, how do you navigate that to bring them and everybody back into the holiday spirit?
Well, I believe in addressing things as close to the moment as possible. It's kind of like if your puppy wets the carpet and 2 hours later you want to punish the puppy, they don't even remember what they're getting in trouble for.
Right.
So you do a much better job when you actually address the issue when the issue is live, when the feelings and the emotions are live. We all have children who open presents, whether it's our own or even our nieces and nephews, who open presents and they're disappointed by what it is that they got, or they thought that it should have been something else, or they're looking over to the next person and noticing what the other person is unwrapping. And you can see the face change right at that moment. That is the moment that you kind of whisper, because you don't want to make a big scene out of it, because this is not about embarrassing your child in any form or fashion, but it's about addressing the issue so that we can have a learning experience that arises from something that could otherwise breed some really ugly things down the road. So I call you over and I say, I notice your face change. What's going on? And they have the opportunity to say, well, I didn't like it, or nothing, or whatever their response is, but don't just leave it there. Did your face change because you thought you should have gotten so-and-so, or you wanted blah, 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 blah. And then after saying that, well, what do you want them to be thinking? What do you want them to know? What do you want them to understand? When they wanted the $200 PlayStation and you could only afford to provide for them the $25, sweater or winter coat, because we've got to be a little bit practical in this season, understanding what that meant, what that $25 meant to mommy and daddy, to auntie, to nana, to papa, to Mima. I need you to understand the love behind that, the sacrifice that was behind that. And don't use this opportunity, or don't forget to take this opportunity to be grateful that you have something. You got to create perspective sometimes for children. And in such a, buy this, and every commercial is about the next newest, biggest. I mean, don't buy the iPod today because tomorrow iPod 12 is coming out.
Right.
So
exactly.
Everything's one-upping. You have to make sure that you rein the holidays back in as a parent, that you are determining what your kids are going to walk away from this experience with, and let it not just be the gifts they unwrap.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about surviving holiday family dynamics with relationship expert and CEO of Trace Consulting, Alvean Lyons, our favorite relationship expert, as I like to say.
Loves the show.
Absolutely. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-22 888-240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. We're talking about just family dynamics and how we can all get along during the holidays. Newly divorced, and Dad wants little Junior to wake up on Christmas morning with him. Mm-hmm. And as a mom, you've never done that before.
Absolutely.
How do
it's
you
painful.
recounsel those feelings? First of all, how do you get to the point where you say, yes, we're going to do this, or no, we're not?
No, we're not going to do this. And that's all the grown-up stuff.
Yes.
It's the conversations that we have to have. That's that preparatory stuff that I'm talking about, because what we don't do before Christmas, we have to answer for on Christmas. Mm-hmm. It is the nature of how things work in life. You have to be able to address some of those things in advance. The conversation where kids are concerned is a very sensitive one, because holidays so often are about the children. So we really want to see that joy in their face. We don't want to be alone. We don't, there's so many emotions that are tied to all of that, that having those conversations ahead of time is significant. Have you never done it before? You're going to feel it. There's no question about the fact that you're going to feel it. When the house is a little empty, when it's a little quiet, one of the things that is helpful, if you think about what's in the best interest of your child, as opposed to what's in your best interest, better decisions are made. Mm-hmm. Yes, I know I'm going to be lonely if you go, but Daddy's married and has some other kids who are now your siblings, and you want to be able to have time with those siblings. It's got to be more about you than it is about me. So we may have to decide, okay, you wake up there in the morning, and then you're here for a late dinner. And in our dinner, we're going to wear our pajamas. So we're recreating the morning all over again. We've got to be able to be a little bit more creative, because we do have a different kind of world. We do have lots of blended families. We do have distance between us. We do have deployed families. We have all kinds of things. So we can't get stuck in the way we used to do things, in the way that we once knew them, if those are at the price of what it is that is true for today. Mm-hmm.
So suppose you want to, or Dad has a new girlfriend, and the decision has been made. Everybody's amicable, so Dad is going to come over to the house to open presents with you and Johnny.
Okay,
but he wants to bring the girlfriend. Allowable? Not allowable?
It's really based on where you are. Because if you're still pining over Dad a little bit, then that is not going to be a happy moment. So you have to be honest with yourself about where you are. Now, here's the thing. Yet again, is it really about you, or is it about your kid? If it's about your kid, you're going to have to get over the fact that you don't love Judy. You really wish Judy would disappear. All you want for Christmas is for Judy to
go
fly
away
off with Santa. So we have to be honest about those things, but at the end of the day, it's really about our children. It's not about us. And for one day, can it not be about us? People didn't steal it from us when we were kids, or hopefully not. We shouldn't steal it from our kids. So these are those moments where you have to be a little bit more self-sacrificing as a parent.
Okay. And I want to ask one other question before we go to the phones. And if you are out there listening and you have your children in the room, tell them to go away for just a second, because we have to talk about Santa Claus. Okay. So do we tell them about Santa Claus? Do we allow the fantasy
of it all
to go
continue?
To continue? And even more importantly, when little Johnny, who's a little bit older than your kid, blows the story. And all of a sudden you have to deal with the fact that they understand reality now.
Right. Every family is different. For some families, it's very important for them to keep the mystery and the excitement of Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and all of those things. For other families, it's really, really great when the kids are small, because it's the magic of it all. But as they start to get older, one of the things that can come with that is not appreciating what you do for them, because you're giving somebody else credit for everything it is that you're hustling and bustling and sacrificing to make happen. So there's not even that sense that this is part of my parents showing and expressing their love for me, their happiness for me, their genuine joy about me being able to experience something. They're slightly robbed of that. So it's really based on what it is that you want to communicate to your child. If the magic and the mystery of life is the thing you want your kid to have, then by all means, I will not be the person to steal that from you. But for me, I wanted my kids to know I love you, and I worked all of these hours to make this happen. So, and don't ruin it for the other kids.
You know, and I'll tell you something a little from a personal perspective of mine. My granddaughter and I have been having these conversations about Santa Claus coming to Norfolk because my family's coming here for the holidays. And my daughter said to me, I'm not sure I want her to think about that because I was devastated when I found out that Santa wasn't real. Now, you know, so this is a generational thing, and I have to respect what she wants because but it's too bad because I'd already told her. So she got to back me up. She didn't put grandma out there, but you know, those are the kind of dynamics you really need to think about because you're thinking this is how my Christmas was, and therefore I want this to be their Christmas.
Absolutely.
And it may be different from your child. And
kids are so different that what it is that they need to hear, what it is that they want to hear, the kind of kid that you have versus the one that you would love to have. You know, there's just they're very different, and you have to be flexible with that. But if you're going to tell your child that there is no Santa Claus or Easter Bunny, then make sure that you also tell them that other kids still want to believe in that magic. And our act of kindness, our act of love is to not steal that magic from them.
That is great. Deborah joins us from North Carolina. Where are you in North Carolina, Deborah?
Hello, you guys.
Hi.
Hi, Deborah.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I am so glad. Right quick, I'm going to try to make this short as I can. I must have been about 12 years old, and I'm 49 now, needless to say. And this one, my birthday was like 5 months before Christmas. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. My stepsister, her parents didn't have any money or whatever to get her daughter something for Christmas. So I was asked if I didn't mind giving her the recorder that I had got for my birthday, mind you, 5 months previous, before Christmas. And it was just a joy. I didn't think nothing of it. It was just all I know in my heart. I felt like, okay, I'm giving something to somebody for Christmas. There was no selfishness there. I was just overwhelmed. And I don't know for sure if that's the day I really realized, okay, there's no Santa Claus. But, my mind wasn't on that part. It was just, I had such a joy. And I was just like, I did not have a problem with that. And this is the first time ever I've ever shared this story with anyone.
Oh, wow. What a great story. Deborah, where are you in North Carolina?
We live in Gates. I'm a local truck driver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm in Williamsburg right now.
Gotcha.
Will you be safe on the road, Deborah? And thank you so much for calling in, and happy holidays to you.
Oh, you too, sweetheart. God bless you all.
You take care, Deborah.
You too. Bye-bye, hon.
I think that it's wonderful that she had that experience, and everybody processes things differently. But we greatly underestimate that in times like that, the gift of being able to give, what that feels like, to learn what it's like to create joy for someone else. Those are the kinds of things we want our kids to experience. Absolutely. Think of the kinds of human beings they will be as adults when they learn young how important it is to want to create something for someone else. Selfishness is one of the worst and most pervasive elements within our society. And what it costs is, we can all look at what that's costing us as a nation. But when we start raising kids who are thinking about something and someone beyond themselves, that makes for a very different kind of an adult. And because the holidays have such a spotlight, there is no better time to do that. Do something for someone else. Yeah.
And make that a tradition also.
Absolutely.
A dear friend of ours of the Another View show, Bobby Fisher, wrote in with a question: what's the best way to deal with religious differences during a family gathering? Great question.
The best way is to start with the big R, respect. Respect the fact that we have different ways of experiencing the God or the higher power that it is that we love and adore. Recognizing that no one better than the other in how we communicate about it. While my faith may be very staunch and I may believe in A, B, or C, that I'm not in the position to tell someone else that theirs is less than. So instead we talk about what we share in common, the philosophy that underpins service to others, love, connection. Find the things that connect us as opposed to the things that divide us. Those are far more effective ways to enjoy the holidays when you have different ways of experiencing them. I was raised Catholic. I practice, I'm a Christian now, non-denominational, and I grew up with my closest friends were Jewish. So I participated in Passover and Hanukkah with my closest friends. And there was the beautiful thing about our higher power is that there's universality in lots of things. So we focused on all of the rich ways in which we were similar as opposed to the small ways in which we were different. And when you do that during the holidays, it just adds a very rich lens to it all. But it starts with a respect for the differences.
You know, and I do want to ask you a question too, because sometimes, you know, as a Christian that I am also, I will say Merry Christmas. But then I say, you know, you don't want to offend others who may not be Christian or may not follow practice that religion. So, but if you say that to someone and they become offended, you know, how do you bounce back from that? Or should you acknowledge that, you know, this is what I believe and I didn't mean to offend you?
Well, if you
know,
it's a
dynamic
I understand exactly
there.
what you're saying. If you know that it offended the person, then you can pause and say, listen, I meant that because for me, Merry Christmas is a very loving thing. And I wanted to share that love and that joy with you. And if it was processed any differently than that, please, by all means, don't interpret it that way. I would just like to say, have a happy and wonderful, loving holiday. Right. But for me, that meant Merry Christmas. And I hope that you could hear the intention of my heart when I said it. So it's just in the acknowledge, depending upon the relationship that you have, you may acknowledge it based on the relationship. If you do not have a relationship with someone and they give you that face, let it go. It's not it's not that serious. We don't have to do 12 talking points on the fact that you didn't like my Merry Christmas. It's okay.
It's really not that deep. I hear you. Terrence joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Terrence. You're in the air.
Hi, thank you. I had the opportunity. I've done a fair amount of theater and, you know, of some 30, 40 different roles, I guess. But I had an opportunity recently to become Santa Claus at the Donna Gross Cultural Arts Center in Newport News. And I approached it with a little bit of anxiety, but it was the most rewarding role I've ever done. And the thing that will really touch me is that, you know, Santa Claus obviously is very real to these little kids, but the kids that gave me hugs was just incredible. But there was one little boy, and I didn't have much time with each child. There was some 500 kids in a matter of 3 hours, but there was one little boy. I asked him what he wanted for Christmas. And he told me that he wanted to go to heaven. And I was deeply touched by that. And the thing that concerned me most was that he was very quiet, he was very reserved. And it occurred to me afterwards that he might well have been ill. And so I hope that I responded in the right way. We're talking about Christmas and the distinction between Christian and Judaism and so forth. A friend of mine told me asked me that I asked him if he knew the Lord, and I didn't think in those terms at that particular time because I wasn't sure that a 10-year-old might understand fully what I was saying. So, but I think that the Lord did influence me because he shocked me when he asked me the question, and so I found myself. I realized later what I said. I repeated the question. And I said, so you want to go to heaven? And he said, yes. And I said, I'm sure you will. And I'm hoping that was a...
Terrence, let me let Alvean answer because we're just about out of time and we do want to get a response. Thanks for the call, though, and happy holidays to you.
Absolutely, Terrence. And the thing that's beautiful about those very organic moments is that it's the intention of our heart at the time that matters the most. It's not always about, did I say the just right thing, but about, did I communicate the just right feeling? And that feeling that you wanted to communicate for that little boy was that whatever the desire of your heart is, whatever it is that brings you the most peace, the most joy, whatever it is that you're really wanting to happen, I want that to happen for you also. So I don't think in any way, I mean, obviously I was not there in the moment, but in any way, if that was what you wanted for that little boy, that would be lost in that. So I think that you did just fine in that moment. And yes, it's, you kind of feel like there's certain things you should have said and could have said, and what if I didn't? But don't spend too much time on that. Just know where your intention was and trust that your intention was that which was received.
Wow, that's beautiful. I think we're going to get in one last call from Nikki in Gloucester. Hi, Nikki, you're on the air.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Okay.
Hi, Nick.
We got about 2 minutes, Nikki. What's your question?
Okay, so my question is, I have a boyfriend, and it's my first Christmas with his family, and money's tight, and I'm worried about looking bad because I found out that apparently all his family is buying me presents, and I just don't have the money to do it.
Right.
And, I don't want to look bad.
Well, Nikki, you are among millions and millions of beautiful women who are going to be experiencing the same thing. So let me say this. It's not always what we get for people, but sometimes what it is that we do for them. Get some really great cookie mix and bake them beautiful cookies. Something for everybody. Take a little bit of time to find out what are people's favorite desserts. What kinds of things do they enjoy? And for less than $10, you can create something that means more than some of those gifts will mean, because you took the time and the effort to create this thing. You can design them. You can do whatever, as creative as you want to be. If it's not cookies, do cupcakes. If it's not cupcakes, just find out something that it is, because we love to eat. Almost all of us do. So food is often very, very safe as a gift for the holidays. And it's something that is generally not budget bursting to show that love.
Nikki, thanks so much for the call, and Merry Happy Holidays to you, and we hope everything goes well for you. I know.
I saw it.
We've got about 30 seconds left, Alvean. Your last thoughts for people in terms of enjoying the holiday with family and friends.
Most important thing, love people for who they are as opposed to who you wish they were. If you do that during the holidays, you will have a much better holiday. They are who they are, and they are our family. We didn't get to choose them. So if it was your friends and you're having a hard time, that's your fault. You chose them. But if it's your family, it's okay. They came with the package.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you, and happy holidays to all of the
happy
listeners.
holidays to everyone, and we'll be right back.
Hang on, mistletoe, I'm gonna get to know you better. This Christmas.
And welcome back. 3 Chesapeake brothers are helping youth to find their niche in life, giving them practical and spiritual tools to be successful. Our Lisa Godley sat down with the creators of My Brother's Keeper, an organization with an innovative formula designed to turn lives around.
The most powerful thing that kids taught me over 4 decades is that they're all diamonds. All of them are diamonds. And we have to treat them as such.
Jerry Gaines knows kids. He's been a teacher, a coach, and an administrator. During that time, he's captured titles like Coach of the Year and Teacher of the Year. And now he shares with audiences of all ages that when he was teaching Spanish, coaching track and field, and serving as a vice principal, that he was the one actually learning.
They taught me that every last one of them, I have yet to see one that was not gifted in some way. And the adults around them are responsible for finding out what that gift is and spreading a little turf builder on it.
Gaines joined forces with his brothers, Jack and Joel Gaines, to form MBK, or My Brother's Keeper, a foundation designed to help people find both peace and success. All of the Gaines brothers excelled in sports in their younger years, and all made it a point to give back to their community whenever possible. Jerry was the first African American to attend Virginia Tech on a full athletic scholarship and the first inducted into the Sports Hall of Fame. His older brother Jack was such a talented baseball player that he signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates at the age of 17. And the youngest in the crew, Gerald, was an All-American in 3 different sports at Carolina University. He went on to play for the Atlanta Falcons as a wide receiver and later as a baseball player with the Texas Rangers. MBK travels all over the world presenting the equation of life. Their audiences have ranged in age from as young as 2nd graders to senior citizens.
If you're a teen, I talk to teens about their favorite subject, themselves. So I help them identify. I think that teens basically ask, they actually scream at the adults around them, tell me who I am. And if we don't tell them good things, they'll invent an identity. And a lot of times we won't like what they invent if we don't tell them the good things. We could also tell them bad things, that you'll never be anything or something like that, and they'll live down to that too. So the message actually is an edifying one to help them identify themselves and their unique skills, and then to go out and to apply them in whatever field of endeavor they choose.
I asked Gerald to give me an example of their message at work.
Gentlemen, we met when we were in Blacksburg High School. This guy's going to be a politician. We really spoke to him, edified him into where he was, and at the same time, we edified those that had low self-esteem in the audience. Because after the program was over, this young fella comes up and he was basically started weeping and spoke to Jerry and said what a deep effect he had on him.
Another component of MBK's message is one of spiritual reconciliation. This component is taught by Elder Brother Jack, who is a minister and the author of My Brother's Keeper, Not My Brother's Killer. In 1999, Jack helped spearhead a conference in Benin, West Africa, where the president of Benin made a public apology to what his ancestors did to our ancestors by selling us into slavery.
Reconciliation became a work because after we did the reconciliation conference, and you hug and you cry and you say, I'm sorry and I forgive you, then what? So we've begun to put together some practical benefits. It is from that platform that we were launched into this entire reconciliation work.
Each component of the program punctuates the other, teaching the mentors in a person's life to be that supportive foundation for the positive choices they make, all the while helping them to identify their special gifts and to use their intellect to get them where they need to be. For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
And if you'd like to know more about My Brother's Keeper, visit our website, anotherviewradio.org. And also, if you'd like to get in contact with Alvean Lyons, you can go to growingagainstgravity.com or Alvean Lyons on Facebook. Time now for things to view and do in Hampton Roads.
You will be my Saturday love.
The second annual Hampton Roads Regional Public Schools Education Summit will be held Friday, January 4th at 8 at the Norfolk Waterside Marriott. Public school superintendents from Chesapeake, Norfolk, Portsmouth, Suffolk, and Virginia Beach will share their regional visions for our public schools. I am honored to serve as moderator, and the event is hosted by the Norfolk Education Foundation. To reserve your seat, call 628-1172. Volunteer Hampton Roads is awarding 2 $500 scholarships to young people as a part of the 14th annual Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service. To participate, you must submit an application along with a one-page essay on the meaning of community service. Essays are due on January 4th, 2013. Call 624-2400 to get your application. The Virginia Symphony Orchestra and the City of Norfolk presents Songs for a Dreamer, a tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on Sunday, January 13th, 2013 at 7 p.m. at Calvary Revival Church, Poplar Hall Drive in Norfolk. The concert is free and open to the public. Call 213-1403 for more information. And Tidewater Community College, along with the Urban League of Hampton Roads, hosts the 29th annual Martin Luther King Jr. Community Leaders Breakfast. It's on Monday, January 21st at 7:30 at the Sheraton Waterside, Norfolk. To reserve your seat, call 627-0864. You can find these and other events on our website, anotherviewradio.org. You can also sign up for our eView newsletter, a once-a-week reminder of upcoming shows. And you can find the podcast of today's program or any Another View program. So go ahead, download the podcast and share it with a friend. The Another View staff is going to take some time off for the holidays, but we've prepared a very special show for you next week. We'll look back at some of the most memorable moments that we spent with you on the radio. For producer Lisa Godley, audio engineer Perry Smith, Crystal Romney, who answered the phones, we wish you peace, love, and goodwill during this season and prosperity in the new year. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Happy holidays, everyone. And let's get together again next Friday at noon for Another View.